Hey friends, let me lift the veil of mystery. My name is Nikolai Ivanov, and I'm volleyball blogger from Russia. I've got a Russian language channel with just over 60,000 subscribers. Lately I've been getting comments asking for English subtitles, and it got me thinking about starting an English language channel. But here is the huge problem, my terrible pronunciation. I used to struggle with speaking clearly in Russian, and now I have to do the same in the language that's not my native one. So I decided to use text-to-speech services to spare you from my awful accent. However, I realize that this can't go on forever, and I need to do something about it. Here's my plan. I have some videos on my Russian channel that haven't been translated into English yet. I'll personally voice over these old videos without using TTS services. I'd really appreciate your feedback on this work. Does it make sense to use my own voice? What should I correct or improve? Or maybe I'm just overthinking it? Your input is crucial to me, and thanks in advance. The first video in this approach will be one of my early analyses that I released back in May 2020. The subject of this analysis is the Russian national team's outside hitter Egor Kliuka. So I invite you to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get to watching. I have a feeling that I'll have a lot of grievances towards Egor. In some ways, I even regret taking up this analysis, because before I simply enjoyed watching him play for the Russian national team, but now I'll be looking at him with some disapproval. If you are new to this format, we'll be breaking down his attacking actions step by step, positioning, footwork, arm swing, spike technique, analyzing his attacks, and finally, I'll draw some conclusions. If you enjoy this segment, you can check out previous episodes in the corresponding playlist and find additional information in the description and tips for this video. Egor was one of those players whose approach was captured in the video about getting into position, but back then I didn't delve deep into the nuances of his technique, I just needed a clip for background footage. However, upon closer inspection of his play as an outside hitter, I noticed several unpleasant technique issues. When everything is perfect and Egor has enough time to smoothly get into position, he'll do it. But if the timer starts ticking faster, Kliuka immediately starts cutting angles, often staying within the sidelines of the court, especially in the second zone. While this might not be a significant concern for the other players, it's a crucial factor for Egor. Why? Pay attention to his approach to the ball. Often the outside hitter attacks from behind their head, because he starts his approach too narrowly. Normally, in a standard combination, outsides should run towards the antenna, but Kliuka tends to move slightly off to the side from the beginning. If Egor gets his approach right and the set is on point, everything will be great. However, any deviation from this plan can immediately lead to difficulties. But let's leave that for conclusions. For now, let's just go through what we see. In positioning, it's an irregular and short move to take the position, especially during transition plays. A poor approach to the ball, again especially in transition. It can also be a mistimed approach to the set, either arriving too late or too early. However, in controlled situations we can't fault Egor, he performs great. It's just unfortunate that such situations don't happen very often. And now let's move on to footwork. The main thing I often pay attention to are the power of the penultimate step and the speed of the last two steps. In this aspect, Egor is doing well. Essentially, that's the foundation of Kliuka's jump. A wide enough penultimate step, good speed of the last two steps, and not too wide placement of the feet, which allows for a transfer of all the energy vertically. But there are moments that really spoil the overall performance. For instance, Egor was very weak coordination, including with his footwork. It's not something you often see among professionals, especially at the level of the national team, and not even the lowest ranking national team in the world. Egor frequently trips up, up, which not only leads to the less than ideal approach, but also simple mistakes in rallies where, at the very least, he could have kept the ball in play. In terms of handwork, there are some interesting aspects to explore, but let's start with the standard situations and leave the rest for the later analysis. Right from the beginning, Egor showcases some tricks from his arsenal. He executes a hang swing with an unusual trajectory. It's hard to classify this as a standard move. Just take a look at it. Kliuka performs a highly amplitude motion, resembling swimming more than the standard hang swing. Is it comfortable? You can try it yourself. Personally, I experienced some discomfort in my shoulder after attempting such maneuvers. Share your experience in the comments as well. Ultimately, the hands up in the same position as usual, but it takes significantly longer than in the standard arm swing. The emphasis on the follow-through also shifts, since the hands don't move parallel to each other, but slightly converge, affecting the vertical impulse. There are no complaints about his spike move. The elbow extension occurs in the shortest trajectory. However, it seems that the free arm is not fully utilized. He rarely extends it to maximum, which also impacts the height of his attacks. So theoretically, Kliuka could attack even higher. When he fully utilizes the free arm, the hitting arm's elbow doesn't seem to work enough. Everything is good from the technical perspective, there are no complaints about Egor's release, it's all good here. His attack speed is also at decent level. The free arm is firmly pressed against the body after the spike. During attacks from the fourth zone, Kliuka used a strong torso rotation, often jumping sideways toward the net, sometimes even landing with his back to the midline. In the regular rallies, the use of the torso is not as active as one would hope, which is particularly noticeable during serving. Since maximum height is not required there, more strength is needed. However, the problem here might be that the Egor often has the ball behind his head. Analyzing Kliuka's attacking tendencies, he predominantly attacks diagonally, but more often he prefers to hit over the block rather than use cunning shots. On one hand, if the jump allows it, why not do it? But on the other hand, this limits his gameplay intelligence and variety. That's precisely why, without adequate height, it becomes difficult to him to come up with effective solutions. Egor tries to attack down the line from the fourth zone, but due to the wild rotation of his body and poor approach to the ball, it becomes quite challenging. He only tipped the ball occasionally when it's inconvenient for him to attack directly, but it seems to happen quite often for a player of his high level. I'm sure you're familiar with Egor's signature tips using both hands, and it's really tough to mask that effectively. But when the Kliuka has a well-executed approach and connects with the tempo of the set, it's almost impossible to predict where his attack will go, given the multitude of options at his disposal at such heights. As you might have noticed, there are quite a few technical aspects that can be addressed with Egor's play. I mainly followed him in the national team context, and I only saw his 40-point performances in the Russian Super League through statistical analysis. However, after watching many more matches at the club level now, I can confidently say that Kliuka still plays purely to his physical abilities, and his development in terms of gameplay versatility has nearly stalled. As a professional, Egor is very poorly coordinated, and as I mentioned earlier, this leads to some strange mistakes. As an outside hitter, he hardly even adjusts to the set and approaches the ball at his standard speed, which creates many situations where he finds it uncomfortable to attack, making it an easy target for the opposing defenders. Even balls set far from the net become a serious challenge for Kliuka, unlike his former teammate Dmitry Volkov. Moreover, even the contact with the ball isn't always successful. Sometimes such balls may land in the court, but other times they may not. There is no doubt that on a good day Kliuka can cause problems for any team, but on the other hand he can be completely unnoticed even against a relatively simple opponent, especially considering his not so great reception and defense. He also requires a constant workload in the attack, otherwise he might get out of the game rhythm. I hope that after watching this video you realize the immense potential this player possesses. If Egor puts in maximum effort towards his development, he could stand alongside the world's best outside hitters. However, at the moment he lacks the consistency for that. Additionally, Kliuka is an example of how one can achieve success in volleyball solely through height and a great jump. I hope you enjoyed this analysis, and if you did, please show your support with like and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your feedback in the comments, including the quality of my impeccable pronunciation. Well, as usual, it's been Nick with you. I love what you do, and you will definitely succeed. See you soon. Bye.